Praise the Lord. My dear brothers and sisters, we were having the Bible study on the book of Acts of the Apostles, and we have reached to the chapter 23rd of the Acts of the Apostles. Let us read the chapter 23rd. Now, St. Paul is in the custody of the Roman tribunal. The Roman commander has him under custody, and now when he came to know that he is a Roman citizen, Roman tribune was so got scared, and now he is released, and he was asked to come to the Sanhedrin, the council of the elders, and he wanted him to speak to the council of elders and stand plea for his position. And if the council of Sanhedrin finds any mistake, any crime in him, then he will be punished. So the tribune wanted to bring him to the council, and now St. Paul is brought to the council, and he's standing in front of the council and is speaking to them. Let us read Acts of the Apostles chapter 23 verse 1. While Paul was looking intently at the council, he was looking intently at the council, and he said, "Brothers, up to this day I have lived my life with a clear conscience before God." First of all, he addressed in a different way. He made them equal to himself. Because normally when you appear in front of a council, you address them, your honor, your ruler, the rulers of the Jewish faith. So they have to address in a respectful, more honorable way. But here St. Paul is addressing them brothers, because once upon a time he himself was one of them, and therefore he still considered that equality with them, and he said, "Brothers, up to this day I have lived my life with a clear conscience before God." And verse 2. Then the high priest Ananias ordered those standing near him to strike him on the mouth. Because why did he want to strike him? Because St. Paul, he is standing as a criminal. According to them, he is standing there as a criminal. But St. Paul says, "I'm clear. My conscience is clear. I am clear in front of God," which irritated the high priest. And this high priest, Ananias, was a new high priest. When St. Paul was one of the Sanhedrin member, that is around more than 20 years, around 20, 25, 27 years before this incident, it was another high priest. Now, meanwhile, the members are all changed, and now new high priest has come. Ananias was the new high priest. And then this high priest was a very hot-tempered man and gluttonous, and he was a greedy man. He's very notorious among the people, and everybody had this negative impression about this Ananias. Later, Josephus Eusebius has written down many things about him. So let's read verse 3. At this Paul said to him, when the high priest told those who are standing next to Paul, high priest said, "Strike on his mouth," because he is justifying himself. He is supposed to be a criminal, and he is standing as a criminal. Now he says his clear conscience is clear, so strike him. So this is what high priest said. But before somebody come to strike him, St. Paul said, "God will strike you." He was so angry with the high priest, and St. Paul suddenly said, "God will strike you, you whitewashed wall. Are you sitting there to judge me according to the law? And yet in violation of the law, you order me to be struck." Why did St. Paul say? There are so many things involved in this sentence. First of all, the Jewish people, according to the Bible, it is written, nobody is allowed to strike anybody. We read Deuteronomy 25 verse 1 and 2. Deuteronomy 25 verse 1 and 2. Suppose two persons have a dispute and enter into litigation, and the judges decide between them, declaring one to be in the right and the other to be in the wrong. And if the one in the wrong deserves to be flogged, the judge shall make that person lie down and be beaten in his presence with the number of lashes proportionate to the offense. So only the one who is found guilty should be beaten. Before found guilty, nobody is supposed to be beaten. Only once the trial is over and one is guilty of the offense, and according to the proportion of the offense, that person should be punished by beating. Here, Saint Paul didn't even start the trial. The discussion didn't even start. Before that, the high priest is ordering to beat him, strike at his face, which is against the law. That is why Saint Paul says like this: you are sitting there to judge me according to the law, and yet in violation of the law, you order me to be struck. So Saint Paul himself knows the whole law because he was a Pharisee. He was one of the members of the Sanhedrin. So he rebuked the high priest. And he said, God will strike you. In fact, it was a prophecy. Because later in the book of Josephus, it is written, this Ananias was full of greedy and gluttonous, and he did lot of corruption. He was stealing the money of the tithe of the people, which was supposed to go to the other priest. He did not give it to the other priest. He took it for himself. And then later, all the people were so against him, and the people themselves brutally killed him. He ran away from the temple, and then people chased him, at the end found him and brutally killed him. So that is the history. That is what happened to this Ananias. That is exactly what St. Paul said, God will strike you. And you whitewashed the wall. Why whitewashed the wall? Because those days, the Jewish people are not allowed to touch the dead bodies. Anything that is connected to dead body, they are not allowed to touch. So they normally used to, around the cemetery, they used to have a wall and which was whitewashed, and inside the tomb. So every tomb is from outside, there is a wall whitewashed. So that is why Jesus himself was said, you are whitewashed tombs. And here St. Paul says, you whitewashed wall. Outside whitewashed, but inside cemetery, the worms and the worms are eating the flesh. So this is how, that is why he said, outside you are a high priest, you seem to be a priest or one of the Sanhedrin members, but inside worms are eating the flesh. And you are a whitewashed wall. So this is exactly the whole conclusion of this sentence. And then verse 4, we read, those standing nearby said, do you dare to insult God's high priest? Because he was speaking against the high priest. No one dared to speak against the high priest in those days. And now St. Paul is rebuking his high priest and saying, God will punish you. And then the people who were standing nearby said, do you dare to insult God's high priest? Then verse 5. Then Paul recognized his mistake. And he suddenly begged for forgiveness and said, oh, I did not realize, brothers, that he was high priest. Because it is written in the word of God, you shall not speak evil of a leader of your people. The Bible says, don't ever speak anything evil of your leader of your people. But unfortunately, without realizing it, I spoke against the high priest. I'm sorry. Immediately he repented. He begged for forgiveness. He said, I did not realize. Why? How come you did not realize? Because there are some people saying, some spiritual fathers, some Bible scholars say, because St. Paul had problem with his eyesight. Because we had some time back, there was a discussion about, some time back we had a discussion about the thorn in the flesh. I had given a talk about, and that time there was some people, majority of the Bible scholars used to say, many of the Bible scholars used to say the thorn in the flesh which he had was the eyesight problem. And because this eyesight, the problem of eyesight started when he had a conversion. A powerful light fell on him. He became blind for 3 days. And then Ananias prayed over him. And then he got the eyesight back. But still there was a problem remained in his eyesight. Because God allowed these things in his body so that he may remember his conversion all throughout his life. So that is why when St. Paul said, Lord, if it is possible, let this thorn be taken away. Jesus said, let it be there. It is good for you. In your weakness, you will glorify God. Your glory of God will be revealed in your weakness. So let's also read Galatians chapter 4 verse 14 and 15. Galatians chapter 4 verse 14 and 15. Though my condition put you to the test, you did not scorn or despise me. You know, St. Paul himself said to Galatians, my condition is not good. I'm not healthy. I'm not strong. I have some problem. You did not scorn me, but welcomed me as an angel of God, as Christ Jesus. Though I have some problem, you welcomed me. And what has become of the goodwill of you felt? For I testify that had it been possible, you would have torn out your eyes and given them to me. So St. Paul is telling Galatians, if it was possible, you would have given me your eyes. That means he has his problem with his eyes, and because of this problem, knowing his problem, if it was possible, you would have given your eyes. That means St. Paul is speaking about his eye problem and his condition he was talking about. And then he said, out of love, you would have given your eyes for me. So he was appreciating them. So that means he had some serious problem with the eyesight. That is why most of his letters are verbally announced and somebody else is written down. Let's also read chapter 6 verse 11 of Galatians. Chapter 6 verse 11 we read, see what large letters I make when I am writing in my own hand. See, he used to write, whenever he writes with his own hand, he used to write in a large letters because he was not able to see properly. So these are how many scholars say. So that may be the reason he could only see so many people who were seated there, and from somebody among them he is telling someone to shout, strike at his face, and then suddenly he rebuked back without knowing it was high priest himself. Without knowing that it is high priest himself. And he said, I did not realize, brothers, that he was high priest, for it is written, you shall not speak evil of a leader of your people. Verse 6 we read, when Paul noticed that some were Sadducees, and let's read verse, when Paul noticed that some were Sadducees and others were Pharisees, he called out in the council, brothers, I am a Pharisee, son of, he wanted to escape. He was looking around how to escape this council. They all are ready to bounce on me, ready to strike on my face even before the trial starts. So they are going to kill me, destroy me. So this is not good. This is not a good atmosphere, situation. The best way to escape is divide and rule. Divide them and escape. So this is what he looked. He is a brilliant man. So he looked around and he found some people are Sadducees and some people are Pharisees. The Pharisees believe in the resurrection, they believe in the angels, they believe in the miracles. But Sadducees, they don't believe in the resurrection, they don't believe in anything supernatural, they don't believe in miracles. These are the two groups. And then he called out in the council and said, brothers, I am a Pharisee, a son of Pharisees, and I am on trial concerning the hope of the resurrection of the dead. My problem here is I am speaking about resurrection and these people are accusing me because they don't believe in resurrection. So in fact what St. Paul said is true. What he said is true. It was correct. He was speaking about resurrection. But he made use of that situation to divide them so that he can escape. So what happened as a result? Verse 7. When he said this, a dissension began between the Pharisees and Sadducees. They started fighting with each other. And then St. Paul kept quiet. Let them continue now. So, and the assembly was divided. All the Pharisees bounced against the Sadducees, and Sadducees were against the Pharisees. And one group said, we believe in the resurrection. The other people said, we don't believe in the resurrection. So there was a big fight. And then verse 8. The Sadducees say that there is no resurrection or angel or spirit, but the Pharisees acknowledge all three. Verse 9. Then a great clamor arose, and certain scribes of the Pharisees, some important people of the Pharisees their group stood up and contended, and they said suddenly, without even asking any question, they suddenly said, we find nothing wrong with this man. I don't know how they found, but they find why nothing wrong with this man. But what if a spirit or an angel has spoken to him? Maybe a spirit or an angel has spoken to him, and that is why he's standing for these. So it may be possible because we believe in spirit and angel. So they said he is fine. And then verse 10. When the dissension became violent means physical attack started. Only verbal attack in the beginning, now they started physical attack. Then the tribune, fearing that they would tear Paul to pieces. So the tribune, the commander, he was wondering, wherever St. Paul goes, he is bringing problem. Initially everything peaceful and suddenly problem comes. So he was wondering what kind of person he is. And fearing that they would tear Paul to pieces, ordered the soldiers to go down and take him by force and bring him into the barracks. And then he was brought to the barracks. Verse 11, that night the Lord stood near him. So that night, in fact, St. Paul, when he was taken back to the barracks, he was so disappointed. You know why? Because God gave him 2 opportunities to preach the gospel. 2 wonderful opportunities to speak to the gospel, and 2 opportunities he missed out. First one, in front of the people, the moment he spoke about Gentiles, everybody, there was a big confusion and everyone started attacking him. Then he was forcefully taken inside. Now he got a wonderful opportunity to speak to the elders, the Sanhedrin, the leaders of the Jewish religion. He got a wonderful opportunity to speak to them. But the moment he spoke about resurrection, there was a big problem and he could not even complete the preaching, and therefore the tribune had to take him by force and gone to the barracks. So he was feeling so disappointed that his ministry was a failure. He could not perform well. He could not bring result. There was no result. Instead, only commotion and confusion. So he was so disappointed, because we read like this in the Acts of the Apostle chapter 24 verse 20. Later, the next chapter, we read like this. Or let these men here tell what crime they had found when I stood before the council. Verse 21. Unless it was this one sentence that I called out while standing before them, it is about the resurrection of the dead that I am on trial before you today. So St. Paul himself is saying that it was the only one mistake I did, because I tried to divide the people and divide the group and said resurrection is the reason I am here. So that's the only thing that you can accuse. That is the only thing my conscience also says. So he was feeling bad that he should not have done these. So he should have continued preaching. He should have spoken the whole preaching, and then he could have said this. So he missed that opportunity to preach the gospel. And let's come back to that is why he was so disappointed in the prison, and he was worrying. He was having a big crisis in his life. And that is when Jesus himself stood near him, stood by. Jesus was standing nearby to him and said, keep up your courage. So what does it mean? Keep up your courage means his courage was going down. Otherwise, why should he say that? His courage was going down. He was disappointed. He was frustrated. And then Jesus standing. So it is not Jesus appeared to him. It is written that night the Lord stood near him. That means it's not only in that night, every night God is standing near him. Because Jesus himself had said, I think in Gospel of Matthew chapter 28 verse 20 or something, it is written, I am with you always to the end of the age. I am always with you, always to the end of the age. So whenever St. Paul was in the prison, when he was beaten, when he was lonely, when he was in the ship, when he was walking alone, Jesus was standing near to him. Especially when he was broken and he was tired, he was seen, physical eyes in front of with his physical eye he could see. My dear brothers and sisters, God's promise is true. He says, I will be with you forever. He is really with you. He is standing near to you. He is standing by you. And Jesus stood by him and said, keep up your courage. Don't lose heart. Don't lose heart. For just as you have testified for me in Jerusalem, so you must bear witness also in Rome. So what does it mean? Why did Jesus come this moment? Why did Jesus appear? I mean, he just made him to see him, and Jesus said, first thing, keep up your courage. That means he was going down. He was feeling hopeless, helpless. He knew he is going to be killed soon. His time is going to up, and he knew this is persecution. He is going to die soon. So St. Paul was in a disappointment situation, discouragement situation, and he was also discouraged because he could not preach the gospel. He could not testify the message of Christ in front of the Sanhedrin. So he was disappointed. Now, Jesus said, first of all, keep up your courage. Second, for just as you have testified for me in Jerusalem. So now Jesus says, yes, man, you have testified for me in Jerusalem. Don't get discouraged. What you did, that is enough for me. Jesus was telling him, you testified. You are thinking that you have not done your work enough. You are worried about the result. Result is my responsibility. Preaching is your responsibility. You have done your work well. You don't worry about the result. My dear brothers and sisters, he said, just as you have testified for me in Jerusalem, you also must testify in Rome. What does it mean? In Jerusalem, nobody will kill you. In Jerusalem, they may go for one trial after another trial, but no one will touch you. You will be alive. You will go to Rome. It was an assurance of protection. Jesus was giving him assurance of protection when St. Paul was almost sure that he is going to be killed in Jerusalem. He knew the end is coming closer. Therefore, he was almost sure he is going to die. But Jesus came and first of all, take courage, gave him courage. Secondly, appreciated his preaching. Though he was not appreciating himself because he could not complete the preaching. But Jesus said, you testified me. Third, you also must testify the same way in Rome. That means you will be alive even in Rome. You will continue your preaching in Rome. Then the next day, let's verse 12. In the morning, the Jews joined in a conspiracy and bound themselves by an oath, neither to eat or not drink until they had killed Paul. Now you can see two promises, two vows. One is the vow of God, Jesus. Jesus said, you will be preaching in Rome. Now some 40 people came together and they took a vow, we will kill him in Jerusalem. Two vows. One, Jesus' vow. Another one, 40 Jewish people's vows. And they even ready to do fasting and prayer. Fasting, and they said, we won't touch the water or drink or eat or anything unless we kill him. Jesus said, you will go and preach in Rome. So let's see what happens. Whose vow is powerful? Let's read verse 13. There were more than 40 who joined in this conspiracy, and they decided not to touch water or drink or eat or anything unless they kill St. Paul. There were more than 40 who joined in this conspiracy. Let's read verse 14. They went to the chief priest and elders and said, we have strictly bound ourselves by an oath to taste no food until we have killed Paul. Until we kill him, we are not going to touch the food. Because they knew it's very easy. In those days, some Jewish terrorists were there. In those days, they used to have an ambush, unexpected ambush on Roman soldiers and Roman leaders, and they kill Roman leaders. So they used to have some Jewish terrorists who used to come together, secretly attack people. So this same group of people, they took an oath that they won't eat until they kill Paul. And then came, and verse 15. Verse 15. Now then, you and your council must notify the tribune. You should inform tribune to bring him down to you on the pretext that you want to make a more thorough examination of this case. And we are ready to do away with him before he arrives. So tomorrow you call him, tell the tribune to bring him to the council, and before he comes here, we will attack him and we'll kill him. There will be only 1 or 2 security guard for him, and on the way, as they're coming to the council, we will have an ambush on the way and will kill him. So this was the plan of these 40 people. Verse 16. Now the son of Paul's sister. So son of Paul's sister, so Paul's relative, one man, the son of Paul's sister, heard about the ambush. So he went and gained entrance to the barracks and told Paul. He somehow got inside the barracks and spoke to Paul and said, Paul, this is what is going to happen. Then Paul called one of the centurions and said, take this young man to the tribune, for he has something to report to him. Tell him, take him to the tribune because he has something to report to him. Verse 18. So he took him, brought him to the tribune and said, the prisoner Paul called me and asked me to bring this young man to you. He has something to tell you. So they informed the tribune. And then verse 19. The tribune took him by the hand, drew him aside privately and asked him, what is that you have to report to me? Tell me. And then verse 20. He answered, the Jews have agreed to ask you to bring Paul down to the council tomorrow, as though they were going to inquire more thoroughly into his case. Verse 21. But do not be persuaded by them, for more than 40 of their men are lying in ambush for him. They have bound themselves by an oath neither to eat nor drink until they kill him. They are ready now and are waiting for your consent. So this is all the secret was revealed to the tribune. Verse 22. So the tribune dismissed the young man, ordering him, tell no one that you have informed me of this. So very interesting, the story becoming thrilling and suspense thriller. Now let's see, this is what happened. And then verse 23. Then he summoned 2 of the centurions and said, get ready to leave by 9 o'clock. Tomorrow, 9 o'clock, tonight, 9 o'clock for Caesarea. You have to immediately, before they come and ask for St. Paul, today itself, you have to, by 9 o'clock, get ready and go to Caesarea. Caesarea was the capital of Roman government in Palestine and Galatia and Cilicia, all these areas. The capital of Roman government was in Caesarea. So he said, get ready today night, 9 o'clock, tonight you have to start, and take him to Caesarea with 200 soldiers, 70 horsemen and 200 spearmen, total 470 security guard. Just imagine, when God has decided to protect you, he will give you extreme protection. So this is how Jesus has told him, you will go to Rome and preach. And there are some people, 40 people, you will be killed tomorrow. And Jesus is giving extreme protection. And 470 trained soldiers were trained guarding St. Paul. And 24. I'll also provide mounts for Paul to ride. So he's on the horses, and take him safely to Felix the governor. So he is taken to Felix. Felix is another character. Felix is the governor of Roman governor. Initially he was a slave. Felix was a slave, and he has his brother called Pallas. And this brother became close friend of Nero the emperor. Because of his influence, Felix was released from the slavery, and slowly he became the governor. And once he became governor, he became more powerful. He got married four wives, and then he started killing all the people who are standing against him. And he was like a small king. He was ruling that place. He had no morality, nothing. And such a person called Felix the governor. And then verse 25, he wrote a letter to this effect. So now this tribune writing a letter to Felix. He said, verse 26, Claudius Lysias to his excellency the governor Felix, greetings. Verse 27. This man was seized by the Jews and was about to be killed by them. But when I had learned that he was a Roman citizen, I came with the guard and rescued him. So he's speaking all highly about him. He didn't say about how Paul was bound with his hands and legs, how he was scourged. All these things he hid because he knew he'll be in trouble. If he tells the whole truth, he will be in trouble because he's a Roman citizen. Roman citizen should not be punished like this before the trial. So he says, I protected a Roman citizen. So he was speaking highly about himself, and he said, I protected, now I'm sending him to you. They are trying to kill him, but I'm protecting Roman citizen. Verse 28. Since I wanted to know the charge for which they accused him, I had him brought to their council. Verse 29. I found that he was accused concerning questions of their law. It is nothing to do with the Roman government law, but was charged with nothing deserving death or imprisonment. He is not supposed to be imprisoned, or he doesn't deserve these. Verse 30. When I was informed that there would be a plot against the man, I sent him to you at once, ordering his accusers also to state before you what they have against him. So I sent him to you. Now I told those people, accusers, to go and speak to Felix. and you can have a trial in front of him. This is what I told, he said. Verse 31. So the soldiers, according to their instructions, took Paul and brought him during the night to Antipatris. So that is the leader of that group. And verse 32. The next day they let the horsemen go on with him. So the horsemen went back. Horsemen went with him. The rest of the people went back because the most dangerous place is over. They have crossed that dangerous place because there were the difference. The distance from Jerusalem to Caesarea was around 60 miles. So the most dangerous place was over. So they know he's in protection. So while they returned to the barracks, verse 33. When they came to Caesarea and delivered the letter to the governor, they presented Paul also before him. Verse 34. Let's read. When they came, and on reading the letter, he asked what province he belonged to. And when he learned that he was from Cilicia, verse 35, that means he's under him. He said, I will give you a hearing when your accusers arrive. Then he ordered that he be kept under guard in Herod's headquarters. So he said, I will speak to you when your accusers arrive. They are on the way, let them come first. When they come, I will listen to you. So now let's also wait, let them come.